Hi, boys and girls. Usually on Wednesday nights, we're together at Awana at Faith Community Church. And usually my 3 and 4-year-old kids who are called Puggles are there with me. But we can't be at Puggles right now because we're all safe in our own homes. Every year for Puggles, we do a special Easter lesson, and Easter's coming up. So I thought that I would share a little bit of one of the special things that we do at Puggles for our Easter lesson. I'm going to talk to you today about my special carton of eggs. And these eggs have special things inside of them. Let's find out what they are. They tell the story of when Jesus died on the cross and rose again, and that's why we celebrate Easter. So let's learn the story about Jesus. Here's my first egg. What do you think is in it? Let's listen. You hear that? The first thing in an egg that we see is a donkey, a tiny little donkey. And this donkey represents the donkey that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a day we celebrate called Palm Sunday. Jesus came into the city on a donkey, and all the people laid down palm branches, and they said, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Hosanna is another name for Jesus. Let's see what's in the next egg. Let's listen. Ooh, that's a loud one. This egg has some coins in it, and these coins represent the money that was given to Judas. Who's Judas? He was one of Jesus's friends. Jesus had some special friends called the disciples, and Judas was one of the disciples. But he sinned against God, and he was paid money to let the people who wanted to hurt Jesus, he let them know who Jesus was. That's called betrayal. He betrayed Jesus. Then let's see what happened. What's next? Let's look at this egg. Listen. This is a tiny little cup. See that? It's just teeny tiny. You wouldn't really drink out of this cup. It's just to show you that a cup is part of this story. Before Jesus went to the cross, he had a special meal with his special friends. And at that meal, they ate bread and they drank wine out of a little cup. And if you ever have heard of communion, that's what communion celebrates, is that special meal that Jesus had with his friends. Here's the next egg. What do you think's in here? Praying hands, a pair of praying hands. This shows us and tells us that before Jesus went to the cross, he was very troubled about what was going to happen. He knew what was going to happen to him. So he went to a garden with his special friends, and he said, "You stay here and pray, and I'm going to go into the garden a little bit farther down the path, and I'm going to pray, and we'll all pray to God to help me for what comes next." And you know what happened? His friends fell asleep 3 times because it was late at night and they were tired. But Jesus, he prayed. Let's see what's in the next one. It's not very loud. After Jesus was praying in the garden, he was arrested by some soldiers. And this represents the whip. Those soldiers used a whip, which is kind of like a weapon, to hurt Jesus very badly. What comes next? Hear a little bit noise in there. It's a crown of thorns. The soldiers put a crown of thorns on Jesus' head when they put him up on the cross. Oh, my egg fell open before I got to open it. Okay, what's in this one? Listen. I don't hear anything, but I promise you there's something in there. This is representing 3 nails. When Jesus was put on the cross, they put 3 nails through his hands and his feet to nail him to the cross. And the cross is where Jesus died. Let's see the next one. And here we have a dice, a die or dice. And this represents that the soldiers and some people that were around the cross that didn't like Jesus, they were throwing dice to try and win or get Jesus's what little clothing he had on while he was on the cross. Then we have this egg. It's kind of quiet. This is a spear. And a spear was used to pierce Jesus's side, and then he died on the cross to make sure that he had died. The soldiers wanted to make sure. And Jesus really died. Then we have this egg. Pretty quiet, but I bet there's something in there. What do you think it is? This is a piece of linen. Linen is a type of fabric. And after Jesus died, they took him off the cross, and one of his friends wrapped his body in linen. And they put him in, it's called a tomb, and it's kind of like a cave. And so they put him in the tomb, and that brings us to our next egg. What do you think that is? That's a loud one. That's one of the louder ones. It is a rock. And this is to remind us that in front of the tomb, they rolled a big rock in front of it to close it up tight. And the big rock was bigger than a door and heavier than a car. It was a really big rock, and it sealed up the tomb. And Jesus was in that tomb for 3 days where he was after he died. And then we come to our last egg, number 12. What do you think is in here? It's pretty quiet. There's nothing in this one because 3 days after Jesus died, his friends went back to the tomb and the rock was rolled away and the tomb was empty because Jesus was alive. He had risen from the grave. And that is why we celebrate Easter, because Jesus is still alive today and he's in heaven and he can be our friend. Isn't that so exciting? So Easter, even though a very sad thing happened when Jesus died on the cross, a very happy thing happened when Jesus rose again. And that's why we celebrate Easter.